It's the 19th of May. I've replaced Tom Glasson. Welcome to the roast.
Sorry, I'm late. Sorry everyone.
That's
enough with you.
No, it's my show. No, I'm gonna get you.
It was the protests on the weekend that threw me. March in May, it was madness. I reset my clocks, I was looking at a different calendar, wearing T-shirts in the cold. Anyway, I'm here now. I'm Tom Glasson. Welcome to the roast. Tonight, youth unemployment gets worse and the Prime Minister's popularity takes a dive. But to be fair, old people and Bill Shorten aren't that much better off. First though, Mark Humphries has the headlines.
State and territory leaders met in Sydney yesterday to discuss concerns over the federal budget. All your favourite premiers and chief ministers were there. Darren Lockyer, real estate agent, Taft styling gel, generic male politician 1, 2, 3 and Barry O'Farrell. The only premier to miss out was West Australian premier, sensitive new age guy. But Campbell Newman had his back.
Well, I'll just say Colin. We all know and love Colin.
I agree, we all know Colin. But where was he? Again, Newman had his back.
He has a slightly different view about the timeframes involved, and maybe that's because the budget impacts aren't as pressing for him.
True, in comparison to Queensland, WA does have about 3 hours up its sleeve. But when it came to the federal budget cuts, New South Wales Premier Mike Baird wasn't holding back.
We can give no clearer message to Canberra than to say we cannot absorb these cuts.
Damn right, the states are doing it tough at the moment. If this photo from yesterday's meeting is to be believed, they've already had to downgrade from San Pellegrino to Mount Franklin. That's why the states want immediate action, with yesterday's meeting ending in calls for an urgent Coag meeting to address these concerns before the 1st of July. For those unfamiliar, Coag is a meeting between state governments and the federal government for leaders to discuss various topics, specifically, can my state have more money? The world's largest known dinosaur has been discovered in Argentina. Sadly, it was found dead at the scene. The dinosaur was 20 metres tall, and as you can see, its femur measures 1 1/3 Argentinian paleontologists in length, the traditional measurement tool for paleontology. Leading the excavation was paleontologist Diego Pol, who'll finally get some Twitter love to rival that of his brother Ozpol. The creature is believed to be a new species of Titanosaur, a species which combines 2 of Clive Palmer's favourite things, Titanics and dinosaurs. The discovery of the world's largest dinosaur is sure to impress the people at the Guinness Book of Records and the person who still buys it. And finally, the first book about missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 has been released. I'm sorry, that should have read, the first person to cash in on missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 has been revealed. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thank you, Mark. Well, over the weekend, the federal budget took an absolute beating from the 3 Ps: polls, protesters and premiers. There were also chief ministers in there, but it ruined the whole alliterative thing I had going on. And at the same time that these guys and gal were meeting to discuss having another meeting, thousands of protesters took to the streets for a rare display of agreeing with their state premiers and chief ministers. Now, state unity is a real concern for the Prime Minister because on its own a state can be managed and bullied and put on a separate island. But united, the states form a great power. They're like Captain Planet in that they should always just be united from the beginning instead of faffing about for 25 minutes, then joining forces to get their way. But now is a great time for them to strike because currently the net approval of the coalition's budget is sitting on a record low of -32%, meaning even the coalition's popularity is in a deficit. Still, the Prime Minister is not worried.
The last government, which brought down a very tough budget, the Howard government in 1996, took a big hit in the polls too.
I can't quite remember that, but thankfully I am now joined by our own Alex Lee, who's travelled back to 1996 to investigate. Alex, how much of a hit in the polls did Howard take back then?
Yes, Tom, the 1996 budget was indeed a huge hit in the polls.
Oh, no, sorry, Alex, I said how much of a hit did the Howard government take?
They didn't, Tom. They should have taken a hit. It was a tough budget that slashed spending and even imposed a superannuation surcharge on high-income earners. But voters couldn't get enough of it. In fact, the budget was one of the best received in the history of polling. The only way the 96 budget could be any more popular is if you'd given it the Rachel haircut.
Oh, yeah, the 90s were cruel to everyone.
Whatever.
So, Alex, why has Abbott said that Howard's budget took a hit in the polls when clearly it didn't?
Well, you know when you're in an argument and you try and win it by making up a fact that sounds like it could be right and just hope that no one ever finds out? Well, it's the political equivalent of that, but unfortunately for Abbott, it's not the 90s and everyone has Wikipedia.
And I've heard that Howard's not happy with his former health minister's axing of the family tax benefits that he himself installed.
Well, it sounds like Tony will have to make it alone without his mentor. Turns out all that lying about Howard being unpopular and working to dismantle some of his policies has somehow worked against him. Oh, I gotta go, Tom. I have to warn Joey not to make his own spin-off show.
All right, thank you, Alex. And just like Joey, maybe Tony Abbott needs to learn that not all the supporting characters deserve to become leads. And when you've got Papa Howard criticising the Liberal Party like some sort of bald Malcolm Fraser, it's not surprising that budget disappointment is widespread. So while a budget surplus would be ideal for Australia, it might not be the most pressing priority for people who work outside of government or those mysterious shadowy number crunchers who work in the Treasury.
So that's it. A pathway back to surplus.
That's incredible. How did you... Well, okay, you technically have managed to get us back on the path to surplus, but for anyone who is currently living, these cuts will be less welcome than a fart in a jacuzzi or a clown in a bank.
But we got voted in on the promise of returning the budget to surplus. So there it is.
Indeed, and I hate deficit too, but what the general public craves above a balanced budget is things like affordable universities and free healthcare and enough money to feed themselves. Those things aren't in here. They won't like that. People like it when you give them a coloured sweetie, not when you take them away.
Well, we're standing by it and it won't be changing.
Well, if you won't do it for the public, then do it for little Charlotte and Todd. I don't want them to only finish paying off their HECS debt when they're old and crumbly.
You will do as you're told, Treasury official, or you'll be joining that ever-lengthening unemployment queue.
As you command, sir.
How is Todd, anyway?
Good, he is about to start university. Or at least he was.
Yeah, it's just like they say. The only two things in life that are certain are death and taxes. And that has never been more painfully clear than with this budget. We'll be right back.
Have you ever been made acutely aware of your own mortality while watching a television series classified as light entertainment? How aware were you you're going to die one day? Were you really aware? We'd love to hear about it at the Roast TV or hashtag RoastTV. You're going to die.
Finally tonight, there was another unexpected cut from the budget last week. Information. Specifically, the detailed family outcomes section that shows how budget changes will affect different types of families. It's the first time one hasn't been included since 2005, but to be fair to hockey, it was introduced at a time when the answer to how will this budget affect me used to be positively. And the coalition's clever plan to stop people noticing they were about to get poorer was thwarted by the apparently unforeseen possibility that someone in the country might be bothered to check. For example, an independent analysis showed that in contrast to someone earning 3 times the average wage, who would lose just 0.9% of their take-home income, the biggest budget loser is an unemployed 23-year-old whose income will be 18.3% worse off. Just like Leela here.
What? I have a job. I run the teleprompter.
No, not anymore. You're fired. Just like Leela here.
Oh man, back to New Start.
Classic Leela. Because this budget also introduced changes to New Start for people under 30 by requiring a 6-month waiting period before a cent of government income is received. And what does the government suggest you do during that 6 months when you aren't earning any income? Seriously, that wasn't a setup for a joke. I'm actually asking because there's nothing in the teleprompter. Leela! Improvise? You want me to improvise? All right. Oh, the government wants you to improvise. The government wants you to improvise. So maybe improvise a character that's broke and jobless because you will have a lot of material to draw upon. But Mr. Abbott defended the changes to New Start on Insiders yesterday.
Well, we're not giving up on those people and just saying, OK, here's a cheque, we're going to forget about you.
Yes, so for those who are sick of the government giving you a cheque and just forgetting about you, fear not. Now they are just going to forget about you. And joining Abbott in his support was the Treasurer, who understands what it's like to be an unemployed person because he saw one in a movie once. When asked how he would cope in such circumstances, Mr. Hockey replied,
"What I would expect you'd be in a job. That'd be the starting point, you'd be in a job."
So remember, young people, never get fired. Even if your boss tells you you're fired, you say, "No, the Treasurer expects me to be in this job." Woohoo! Not you, Leela. Oh, God, what is that smell? Jesus, Jazz, what the hell happened to you?
Well, in order to better understand how this budget will affect unemployed people, I quit my job here at the Roast and set out to survive for 6 months before my New Start payments began.
Yeah, right. And did you eat garbage while you filed that report?
No spoilers, Tom. Let's see what I discovered.
I began my unemployment journey by visiting the home of my wealthy family, where my parents were able to help me during this 6-month unemployment window before I qualified for dole payments. Thanks anyway for taking me in during the rough patch, Mama. I really appreciate it. I mean, I'm sure some employment will turn up soon. And this chicken, oh my God, looks incredible, doesn't it?
I'm sorry, who are you and how did you get in here?
As my fellow diners threatened to call the police, I remembered that I wasn't part of a wealthy family who could look after me while I was unemployed. I then went and rejoined my middle-class family, but with cuts to pensions, my grandparents had also moved into my parents' house.
So, you know, although it's going to be a difficult 6 months, I'm pretty sure we're all going to manage under one middle-class roof, eh? And under one blanket. Actually, Grandad, could you move your feet over there? Absolutely freezing. Jesus.
I'm sorry, who are you? And how did you get in here?
I was just...
As my fellow bedmates evicted me with their frozen knobbly feet, it dawned on me that this wasn't my family either. I come from a family who can't afford to support me for 6 months, so I went to the last place these changes to New Start have allowed me to get some support. The kindness of strangers.
Oh, spare some change? No, nothing? Spare some change, sir. Oh, come on, what have I got to do?
A good place to start would be by getting a job.
That's what I've been trying to do. Do you think I want to be here?
As I ranted and raved at the man in the suit, I finally realised this was all my own fault for allowing myself to become unemployed in the first place. So I set my mind to solving that problem once and for all.
Right, so you went and got a job?
No, I stabbed the guy and stole his wallet.
Well, maybe your starting point should have been having a job. Good night, everyone. Jazz, why are you looking at me with murderous rage? Is it because you feel guilty about being unemployed? Hey, put that knife down, Twemlow. Hey, oh, no!